Coming up on Network Africa. 2 suspected jihadists arrested for the Solhan attack in June in the northeastern region of Burkina Faso. The United Nations says it needs urgent access to tens of thousands of vulnerable people in Tigray in the northern Ethiopia region. Plus, Kenya to start receiving 13 million Johnson & Johnson vaccines in August. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. 2 suspected jihadists have been arrested for the Solhan attack in the northeastern region of Burkina Faso that happened in June, killing more than 130 people. In a statement, the state prosecutor announced the arrest of the 2 suspects, both of whom are aged 28, who claim to belong to the Mujahideen group, meaning people in solidarity, which is thought to be affiliated to Al-Qaeda. The group was responsible for previous attacks on the Niger border and is divided into several subgroups based in Burkina Faso and has led incursions into Niger and Benin. The prosecutor has now requested the opening of a judicial investigation into the 2 suspects on a number of terrorism-related charges. The attack on the village of Solhan, which took place at an artisanal mining site, is considered to be the deadliest attack in Burkina Faso since April 2015. Children in northern Mozambique that have been displaced by the Islamist insurgency are being traumatized by their experiences. That's according to international charity Save the Children, which has been collecting the testimonies of Mozambican children who say some have experienced extreme violence, including the killing of their parents by militants. More than 1/3 of a million children have fled their homes because of the conflict, which began in 2017. The charity says the children's behavior changes frequently and some may never recover unless they receive mental health treatment. The Islamist insurgents, known locally as Al-Shabaab, are believed to be linked to the Islamic State group. They came to international attention in March when they seized the town of Palma near huge natural gas fields. The United States has said Ethiopia's declaration of a unilateral ceasefire in the Tigray region could be a positive step if it results in moves to end the conflict, while urging all parties to allow humanitarian access and speed up the delivery of food assistance. The U.S. is also calling for the immediate, verifiable withdrawal of Eritrean troops who've been supporting Ethiopian federal forces. Hundreds of thousands of people in the region are already facing famine, according to United Nations, even as Tigrayan fighters continue to gain ground. United Nations officials say the rebels entered the town of Shire on Tuesday after seizing the regional capital, Mekele, the day before. The Tigrayans have said they will not stop fighting until they have degraded the capabilities of their enemies. Meanwhile, the United Nations says it needs urgent access to tens of thousands of vulnerable people in Tigray in northern Ethiopia. The UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, said roads needed to be opened and humanitarian flights allowed in to deliver essential supplies, as more than 30,000 children risk imminent death. United Nations spokesperson Stephen Dujarric said the consequences and impact of the immediate ceasefire declared by the government remains unclear, as there's been a breakdown of telecommunications and internet services in Tigray.
The consequences and impact of the immediate ceasefire remain unclear. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us there's been a breakdown in telecommunications and internet services in Tigray as of today. So the impact of the current situation on the humanitarian operations remain unknown at this moment. Humanitarian operations have been constrained in the past few days due to the ongoing fighting. We're ready to resume full operations pending security and access assessment as to the new conditions on the ground. We, along with our partners, are looking at options to scale up the humanitarian relief operations in light of what we find following the assessment. We're also looking at supply routes into Tigray in consultations with our security colleagues and logistics experts.
Severe storms have damaged the shelters of more than 16,000 Ethiopian refugees in eastern Sudan. Heavy rains, strong winds and hailstorms destroyed tents and swept away belongings, with a quarter of the shelters damaged. Well, the United Nations is providing the refugees with blankets, sleeping mats and other supplies, while drainage systems are being dug to mitigate the risk of further flooding. Tens of thousands of Ethiopians are seeking refuge in Sudan after fleeing the war in Tigray. Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta says the country will be receiving the first batch of 13 million COVID-19 vaccine shots from Johnson & Johnson in August to help accelerate the country's vaccination drive. Like other nations on the continent, the East African country has struggled to secure vaccines for its citizens to allow it to fully lift restrictions aimed at containing the pandemic. According to the Health Ministry, only 1 million Kenyans out of 47 million have had a first jab, and only 300,000 are fully vaccinated. Mr. Kenyatta also announced that Kenya will set up a fill and finish vaccine plant where the last process of filling vials and packaging for distribution will be done to increase supplies. This is expected to reduce the level of dependency that Kenya has on getting vaccines from donors.
We have already ordered 10 million vaccines from Johnson & Johnson, with the first consignment arriving in Kenya in August of 2021. But in the process of negotiating with this company, we also have managed to get a lower price. For the price of 10 million vaccines, we will be able to have them deliver 13 million doses. Using these vaccines and others in the pipeline, this is how we will vaccinate over 10 million Kenyans by Christmas of 2021 and 26 million Kenyans by the end of 2022.
Abby, again, a Kenyan journalist, joins us now for more on this. Thank you, Abby, for speaking to us. With this expectation of these millions of jabs from the J&J, what's the government's plan in distributing to the public?
Well, thank you for having me on the program. What we can report is that, first and foremost, this news comes at a time when majority
Well, it appears we're having some network difficulties. But still in Kenya, looking at Kenyans living in 3 counties in the north of the East African nation, risk starvation because of low rainfall that has led to droughts. Now, the government is warning. The Devolution Minister Eugene Wamala says it is working with the county authorities to support the affected families. Domestic animals belonging to the pastoral communities in Marsabit, Turkana and Mandera counties are said to have died because of the severe drought. Now, this means the areas are classed as being in the alarm stage. Those affected will receive support in the form of cash transfers and water provision. The minister has urged all the other counties to adopt climate change laws to be able to fight such calamities. Côte d'Ivoire's former president, Laurent Gbagbo, is hitting out at the International Criminal Court, criticizing the legal body of being biased. The 76-year-old, who was acquitted of charges of crimes against humanity in 2019, was speaking after he received a hero's welcome in his home village, Mama, in the southwest of the country. Mr. Gbagbo reiterated that he had not committed any crime. He had been captured in April 2011 after he refused to concede defeat in a runoff election. That refusal sparked a brief civil war in which 3,000 people died. Now, these are his first comments about his acquittal since he came back to Côte d'Ivoire earlier this month. His successor and rival President Alassane Ouattara had invited him back to the country. However, it is not clear if he will still serve time in prison, as the Ivorian authorities sentenced him in absentia to 20 years for looting funds from a regional bank. Let's take you back now to one of our leading stories. Kenya expecting millions of COVID-19 vaccine shots from Johnson & Johnson. We have Abby Agina joining us now. Abby, good to have you back. I was asking what the government's plan is in distributing these vaccines to the public.
Well, sorry for that technical hitch, but the government has made it clear that it has a robust plan that will be seeing the rollout of the vaccine. Well, we do know that the government has ordered for 13 million doses, which will be landing into the country as early as August. And these vaccines will be distributed across the 26 centers across the country. This will be touching on different regions where the various county governments will be tasked with the responsibility of distributing the vaccines at different health facilities across the country. This exercise will see a lot of input from the national government and also funding from the World Bank, where Kenya has received close to $130 million towards this particular exercise. So it is all systems go once and when the vaccine lands. For now, the ground preparations commence.
Well, you know, some African leaders have called for the local production of vaccines on the continent, you know, instead of expecting imports. Kenya now is also a part of that, as the country is setting up a fill and finish vaccine plant, and that's according to the president. Tell us more about that and what impact this is expected to have on the overall vaccination drive of the country.
All right, thank you for that question. The president is on record of Uganda challenging African countries to ensure that they streamline their production processes towards pushing an agenda where the African countries can also have the vaccines made here in the continent. This will significantly really alter the dynamics that come with the vaccine availability across the continent. Right now, Africa is still trailing compared to other continents across the world when it comes to the number and population of citizens. So
All right, then that was Abby Agina, Kenyan journalist from Nairobi. Moving on to other stories. Here in Nigeria, it appears rape cases have been on the rise lately in Jigawa State, despite the enactment of a law by the state government prescribing life in prison or death penalty for the offenders. Now, data from the Sexual Assault and Referral Center in Dutse shows 128 cases have been recorded within 5 months this year. We'll give you more details and also on this. Jean-Claude Iyamuremye is extradited to Rwanda from the Netherlands and has been sentenced to 25 years in prison for Rwanda genocide crimes. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We continue here in Nigeria. We join our correspondent Sadiq Ilyasu, who has a report from Jigawa State. Despite the enactment of a law by the state government, rape cases have been on the rise. Here's more.
This is Kiao local government, 20 kilometers away from Dutse, the Jigawa state capital. Hawking by children is a common sight in markets and motor parks. This exposes the children to many dangers, including sexual assault. Following the recent rise in cases of sexual abuse, the state government has enacted a law prescribing life in prison or death penalty for offenders.
The government is organizing a lot of campaigns, a lot of sensitization to ensure that people understand the evil of rape within the society. And I'm sure a lot of things is being done. If you look at it, the way both the ulamas are taking it off, the civil society organizations are taking it, the traditional rulers are taking it off. Everybody hands is on deck to ensure that the number of rape cases has been reduced to the barest minimum.
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law enacted by the state government in February this year prescribes life in prison or the death penalty and also a 500,000 naira compensation to the victim. From the data we got here at the Sexual Assault and Referral Center here in Dutse, the Jigawa state capital, about 128 cases have been recorded from January 2021 to date. However, the challenge remains the prosecution, as some parents prefer to negotiate with the perpetrators. This is an Islamic school in Majiawa village in Kiawa local council. A teacher in the school is alleged to have impregnated a minor, but the parents of the victim opt for negotiations, an act some authorities are not pleased with.
The case is now almost like over, because they come to negotiate that he has signed an undertaking between the perpetrator and then the different people on board. The parents of the lady, the parents of his parents, the police, and so many people around have put an undertaking for the man to just be feeding the girl. After she delivers, then he will marry her, which is not going to be possible within this present law.
The parents, through ill advice, try to reach an agreement that when the girl gives birth, the rapist will marry her. And we try to say that, no, this is not in any law. It is not in any law in this country, and it is not an Islamic law. So we don't accept it.
The implementation of the law has been a major challenge, but right advocacy groups believe authorities in the state have a big role to play in tackling obstruction to justice by the parents. From Jigawa, Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
A man extradited to Rwanda from the Netherlands has been sentenced to 25 years in prison for genocide crimes committed when he was 19. During Jean-Claude Iyamuremye's 5-year trial, he denied the involvement in the 1994 genocide when around 800,000 ethnic Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed in 100 days by Hutu extremists. The High Court judge said Iyamuremye had been a member of a youth militia that hunted and killed members of the Tutsi community in his neighborhood in the capital, Kigali. The 45-year-old defended himself, saying his own mother was a Tutsi. However, the judge said he could have sentenced him to life but had decided not to, as he was so young when the crimes were committed and he had also saved some Tutsis' families. He was arrested in 2013 in the Netherlands, where he had worked as a driver for staff at the Israeli and Finnish embassies. He was sent back to Rwanda by the Dutch authorities in 2016. 2 years after a popular uprising in Sudan that led to the end of a 30-year-old dictatorship, protests are expected in the capital, Khartoum. The transitional government has introduced tough economic reforms and has won the support from international lending institutions. On Tuesday, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, approved a $2.5 billion loan for Sudan. But high inflation and the end of fuel subsidies have left many Sudanese struggling. There are also concerns that forces loyal to the old regime are seeking to undermine the transition to democracy. Well, a two-day workshop on judicial reforms supported by the United Nations mission in South Sudan has brought together members of the country's judiciary and legal fraternity in Juba. A critical element of the governance reforms stipulated in the revitalized agreement of 2018 is drafting a permanent constitution that would pave the way for elections in the world's youngest nation.
Permanent constitution making process is a critical element of the governance reforms stipulated in the revitalized peace agreement that is expected to pave the way for elections at the end of the transitional period. It is quite symbolic that the drafting of a permanent constitution for South Sudan coincides with its 10th anniversary as an independent country. In terms of peace building in post-conflict South Sudan, the judiciary's role as a primary mechanism for accountability and conflict resolution cannot be overstated.
These discussions provide an opportunity to reflect on how judicial reforms can help the constitution-making process and how this can improve the effectiveness of the judiciary in promoting sustainable economic development, judicial independence, and contribute eventually to the shaping of democracies that suit the changing political and legal environment of South Sudan.
A former refugee, Jonas Kinde, is showing how refugees can thrive in their new homes when given opportunities in sports, education, and health. He is a track and field athlete originally from Ethiopia, but he now lives and studies in Luxembourg. Jonas also works in a pharmacy and manages stockpiles of COVID-19 vaccines.
Jonas Kinde may not be training for this year's Tokyo 2020 Summer Olympic Games, but the 41-year-old once ran the marathon in 2 hours 17 minutes and has no intention of slowing down. The former Ethiopian refugee was selected by the International Olympic Committee to compete for the Refugee Olympic team at the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Running refreshes the mind because when you run, and you have a fresh mind again, because when we have a lot of problems, when we run, it is getting better because running helps us, as I said, physically and mentally to find ourselves and to build our moral and physique.
Kinde is doing more than promoting fitness and mental health now. In the country and region he has called home since 2012. He has a job that not only provides an income, but a direct way to help in the fight against pandemic as well.
I'm working in the pharmacy, so the pharmacy we distribute the medicines for the patients, for the COVID patients, that I'm really happy actually that I work for this domain because I can help the people who is positive with the COVID. So we distribute the vaccine staffs, the medicine and medical materials.
Kinde is also studying and regularly makes time to meet up with friends. He urges other refugees to take advantage of the opportunities around them and appeals for acceptance and support from host countries and communities.
My message for the refugees is stay strong and fight for peace and stay moving, be active, help each other. For the people around the world, my message is we have to stand with refugees because to be a refugee, it is not a choice. At any time, everyone can become a refugee. So we have to show the solidarity together.
The UN Refugee Agency says Kinde and many other former refugees are shining examples for those who are still struggling to settle down after fleeing their countries.
That's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.